Welcome to the Run Out. I am Neil Barrett. He is Brandon Hooten. Brandon, we had a pretty fun weekend of lacrosse in Utah. You were there.
Yes, second year in a row.
Shooting. For anyone who doesn't know, Brandon is a photographer, and you were shooting the games, pumping out some incredible stuff.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased with the content this weekend. Like I told you guys, that was literally the best I've ever shot in a day, a game, a weekend, like anything. And we got some stuff out pretty quick, like stuff that I felt like we were kind of beating the league at certain points. Not that it's a competition, but just, one thing you're always taught as a photographer is like the quicker you can get stuff out, the better. Because the news cycle, especially nowadays, is so quick that like you got to get stuff out. So I was pretty pleased because I didn't have a connection down there. I was using a hotspot the entire time.
Wow.
So yeah, a bit of a rocky start that first game when I realized there was no connection, and I was like, well, this is how we're gonna have to do it. But it worked out.
No, you were killing it because I did notice speed first. I was like, wow, like, I know photography. I don't really know like the connection side of it and how people are getting it pumped out. I've watched some of the PLL guys run back and forth with like memory cards and stuff. I didn't know how you were doing it, but I noticed speed and I noticed quality. Although I told you this in the chat. I was like, your work's always been good. Like I told you when you first came on the show, and I was looking for some information on like how to add you to the website and stuff like that. And I found your photography stuff. I was like, holy crap, there's some amazing stuff. So I've always thought that the talent was there, but like I don't know how much of it was like it was beautiful in Utah this weekend. I don't know how much of it was kind of like the emotion of the games that were taking place, because I know you're great, but like there was something about the level of what you guys were producing this weekend that was really, really incredible. I did want to ask you, being there, what was it like in Utah? Like on TV, it was incredible, but what was it like there in person?
Same thing in person. Back to back years, they've been a very good crowd. Like just. Mm-hmm. Again, and like I told Jackson in the group chat, like it's nice that they have like their team, and it's not like I remember like the first, I think it was last year, I guess was the first year with cities, and like in Denver specifically, like there was still a lot of Outlaws fans, but there was also a good mix in of like other fans that were just cheering for both. And even before cities were announced, like same type of deal on a bigger level. Whereas like Utah, both the years has been like, nope, this is our team. We hate every other team that's playing. Like, this is what it is. And that was really, really cool. Like, and especially like the second year in a row, they've booed Brennan like an insane amount. And it was even louder this year. And I was like, you guys care that much that he killed you like a season and a half ago? Like, but well, they do, and they hold on to it like real sports fans do. So it was awesome.
They do, and that's great. But also, I'm of the opinion that I don't think it was it was about Brennan, but also I'm like, if Brennan wasn't on that field, they'd have just found another target. They'd have just booed Pat Kavanaugh. They'd have booed. Yeah. They'd have just picked someone and like honed in.
It was funny though, because there were a couple times where he literally caught the ball, turned and passed it, and they still found a way to boo him in that like in that half window. A second that he caught the ball. I was like, okay, this is impressive. Like,
yeah, but it's one of the things I think they nailed in terms of the placement of the teams in the home cities was Utah from the jump. The Archers had that Utah connection, and I find it really funny that they don't really have that connection anymore, but Utah has like that. The connection with Utah has stayed. Will Manny and the Holmans, and I don't even think Adam Gettleman is there anymore, right?
No, he's with Boston. He's the
Boston.
backup in
That's
Boston.
right. I was like, I just saw him on the sideline somewhere and was like, wait, I didn't even realize he was still playing. But you're right, it's Boston. So like really that whole Utah connection that was built originally based on those guys, they're not even there anymore, but that's still Utah's team. And I do think that Utah has become like the number one location. If you're a PLL fan, like that's the place you need to go and watch a game in Utah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I saw Will Manny was also on the broadcast. I know you said he did a pretty good job. So that's awesome too that he was there doing that. I saw Las Vegas Desert Dogs coach Sean Evans was there as well on the sideline. I saw a TikToker that I'm blanking on his name right now, but he was there. Like there was just a lot of just clear excitement from everybody, and even for the games that didn't feature the Archers, I felt like the crowd was still pretty strong. Obviously, you have the fans that leave because they only care about their team, but generally speaking, like for a stadium that has two sides, I was pretty happy with the turnout. All 4 games, and I mean they even at one point moved the premium on-field seating to another area. I would assume because of space, or maybe they sold more. I don't fully know, but it was awesome.
Awesome. Well, let's get into some of the games here. We'll start with the California Redwoods beating the Utah Archers 9-8. This game, we talked about California last week being a hockey team and only playing 3 quarters, and I'm not sure that they're going to beat those allegations with this game. I thought both teams looked awful in the third quarter. It was just one of those like someone has to win, and it just happened to be the Woods, but I'm still not sure that they played very well in this game at all.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty sloppy game. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that. It was nice that California was at least consistent scoring wise in each quarter. If you're gonna win a sloppy game, like at least make it consistent throughout. Which was good, whereas the Archers started really hot and then fell off pretty hard. But, I mean, Dobson and Chase, again, both over 66%. Mac O'Keefe finally having like a good game was really good to see. I mean, I know it's only 3 points, but yeah. But I'm just saying, like, he struggled for much of the season, so that was good. But, yeah, it was just one of those, like, gritty games that like nothing's really fallen. Both teams shot under 20%. And I think Joe Keegs even tweeted out that like California's 15.7% was like the lowest in a win. I don't know if it was all time or in a certain time frame, but 15.7% was not the best. But you know what? They found a way. And good for them finally, getting back on track. So
yeah, no, they. I was gonna say that Brett Dobson ended at 68% and had 17 saves, but I don't actually remember him really having to work for much. At least I seem to remember. I feel like he had one really close, like in tight, where he kind of robbed someone. But other than that, it was like most of them felt like fairly routine saves, and that felt like you were saying part of the Woods just shooting woes, just not getting good shots, not taking good shots. And like I said, this is one of those games where somebody had to win, and the Woods were just slightly less bad than the Archers in this game. The other, I guess, really big thing to talk about coming out of this game was the injuries to Tom Schreiber and Grant Ament. Tom Schreiber went down with a knee injury, and Grant actually finished the game. I don't think anybody was aware that he had any issues until the next game, which we'll get to. He did not play. He was in concussion protocol. So kind of weird. Going to be interesting to see what happens with the Archers moving ahead. They do have next week off, so hopefully those two guys can kind of heal up and get back on the field, because Utah's probably definitely going to need them
they only have one more game as well. Like, every other team I think has 2 except for Boston has 3. So like they need to win the game. This
Right.
isn't a not. I know it's in 2 weeks, but they have to win that one. And also, this is the second year in a row that Tom Schreiber's gone down in Utah in the first game of the weekend, and he was on crutches that second day, so that could be precautionary. I'm not going to speculate on what's going on there, but it would not shock me if he didn't play come 2 weeks from now. But I'm sure Grant will at least be back. But yeah, when I found out both of them were out, I was like, well, now you already had an uphill battle playing back to back against the Outlaws, and now you have an even bigger hill to climb, which sucks for them. But
yeah, and I'm with you. I'm inclined to believe that hopefully that was just kind of a precautionary thing and trying to save him for Boston and maybe a playoff run if they can make it, because it didn't really look like much of anything. But I mean,
I don't even know what play he got injured on.
It was the one he sprinted full field. He got caught on defense, ended up with I can't remember if he stripped it or what, ended up scooping the ground ball and took off. And I remember being like, this is the fastest thing I've ever seen Tom Schreiber run. Like, he outran people. I was like, what is happening? And then he just fell out. Like, he made a move like he was going to dodge, and he kind of like tripped himself up, kind of fell over. I don't think his feet actually like collided with each other. He just kind of like, his momentum just got too far ahead of him, and he fell over and he just stayed down. And it was like, what? And he didn't pull up holding like a hamstring or anything. It didn't appear to be muscular. To be completely honest, in the moment, I thought maybe he just kind of smacked his knee on the turf. And it wasn't really until they said he wasn't gonna play that I was like, oh, maybe it was something more, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just, maybe he did just like smack his knee on the turf really hard and it just kind of swelled and bruised and he just wasn't going to be able to go. They don't really tell us much, so we don't really know. It's all speculation, and I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole too much, but hopefully it is something like that that's not too severe. The other thing I thought too when he went down was the Toronto Rock have got to hate seeing him play in Utah, because I mean, this goes to a much larger conversation that we will have probably after the PLL season about kind of the future of what these two leagues look like and what it means to be a professional lacrosse player in the future, because not only did he get hurt last year in Utah, but the year before that he got hurt in the playoffs and missed part of, I think he didn't miss too much because it was his collarbone, but he was out for, I think like he missed part of a training camp or something for the Rock. So again, if I was the Rock GM, I'd just be like, stop going to Utah.
Well, or not, because, their owner's talking about how he's going to be on D&D if they don't get their CBA figured out. So maybe he doesn't care. Fair. Probably and that's not even me taking a shot for anyone listening, that he literally said that on a public forum.
No, he did say that on a public forum, and probably something we should have slated in to talk about in this episode.
Well, we recorded before that even occurred.
No, that's what I'm saying. We should have probably slated it in for this.
Oh yeah, we can definitely get into that later on if we want.
I had kind of forgotten. It's kind of like blown over. I'd kind of forgotten about the NLL stuff right now. But yeah, maybe we should talk about that before we get out of here. But let's move on to the second game of the weekend, where the New York Atlas defeated the Maryland Whip Snakes 11-8. The note coming into this game for me was Jim Stagnita apparently actively chose not to dress Rob Pennell and to play Matt Rambo instead. And that seems to have been a mistake.
I'm not going to say yes or no. I know you care a lot about this.
I I don't care.
I shouldn't say you care about it. I should say you have some opinions on Pinnell being in the lineup. I'll say that.
Well, here was my thing. If you want to drop both of them, fine. I get that. But to say that Matt Rambo right here today is better for your team than Rob Pinnell, and you would rather play Matt Rambo than Rob Pinnell, that was what I was very opinionated. I don't think, again, while I don't think Rob Pinnell was what was wrong with this offense, I don't think that he has played at a level where if you dropped him, you'd be like, well, what the hell are they doing? Because, again, I didn't think they should have signed him in the first place. So if you drop both of them, I get it. But to not only play Matt Rambo, but to say that you thought it was better for the team, I was like, that's insane. And to that point, they ended up sitting Rambo. I don't think he played most of the second half. And honestly, I thought they looked better in the second half. Now, how much of that was Atlas getting up big and running out? They were up, totally doing some math here. They were up 10-4 before the whips really kind of got rolling a little bit late in the third on into the fourth. That was when I really thought they started to kind of pick up. They stopped putting Rambo in and just like we have talked about repeatedly, let those young guys do what they were doing at the end of last year and what they were doing this weekend. And it just makes me wonder, not necessarily would the Whips have won, but could they have potentially pushed Atlas more if they had been playing that way the whole game, so... other than that, the big story is probably Liam Intamin at 71% in goal, making 20 saves. If not for some of the games Blaze Reardon has had this year, the story might be Liam Intamin. He's been very, very good all year.
Well, yeah. And defensively as a whole unit, they've been very good. I mean, they held TJ Malone to 1 point in this game. And they made the young guys beat them, essentially. And
try to.
Yeah. I mean, only 2 guys had 4 points on Maryland, but, I mean, they did what they had to do. They let Liam get the shots he wants to see. And once he found that rhythm, it was just it was routine. It was it doesn't matter what you shoot at him, he's going to save it. And even by the time the Whips kind of, got hot at the end of that game, it was it's too late. The Atlas don't have to score now, because you already let them score too much. And Jeff Teat, 3rd game in a row, 5 points. He's hit his groove at the right time, especially if he's continuing this the last 2 weeks into playoffs. They're a well-oiled machine. Even when Trevor Baptiste went 7 for 22, it didn't matter. They still got shots. They got good quality shots as well. I thought Emmett Carroll still played pretty decently, but the Atlas are just kind of too much, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Emmett Carroll, I thought he was, I say only at 52. I feel like anytime you're above 50, you're having a fairly good game. And if that defense is slightly better in front of him, I think, or maybe the offense is slightly worse in shooting at him, I think he was solid. He's 100% earned that number 1 goalie position for that team. I know that was a bit of a debate earlier, but I don't see them going backwards. Now, I did come out of this game with 2 questions for you. Number 1, I think we'll get into the Waterdogs here in a minute, but I think that Michael Sowers maybe took his hands off of that MVP trophy this weekend. And you saying no?
I know what you're going to ask me. The answer is no.
No, I don't think you know what. I don't think so. I think that lots of people have put Connor Schellenberger above him. He is officially above him statistically in points this year. Where would you have that MVP right now?
So who on Michael Sowers' team plays at the level Jeff Teat plays at? Who on
Not
Michael
CJ
Sauer's
Kirst.
team plays at the level Liam Entenmann plays at?
Not Dylan Ward.
I could keep going down the list.
To be fair, I think you could argue that Matt DeLuca has been maybe not quite as good as Liam Entenmann, but he has been very good.
He's been good.
They just don't win when he plays.
So I say all that to say, it's not that I don't think Shelley can win. It's that when I look at the difference between him and Michael Sauers, it's a 2-point difference, I believe. I don't have it up right in front of me, but it's 2-point difference. One of them has a super team, one of them does not. I look at the Waterdogs offense, and I literally, if you shut down Michael Sauers or you let him score 4 and then shut him down, they still lose. You shut down Shelley, guess what? You still have Teat. You have Costabil. You have, Matt Trainer now. You have Xander Dixon. Like, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm not going to be like, yeah, Shelley jumped him and he's way ahead because he has the better team to help him. Now, I'm also someone that believes that you still have to perform, and Shelley has been immaculate. He needs to be a finalist. He will be, I believe.
Yeah.
But I just think it would have to be such a big gap between those two for me to be like, yeah, he's way ahead. I'm not saying that Sauers hasn't slowed down. He absolutely has. I also think that it's because teams are selling out to stop him.
Yeah.
The first couple of weeks, he had 15 points through 2 weeks, and he has, I think, 14 since then or something like that, because teams have figured out they cannot go without Michael Sauers. I look at a team like, sorry, this is a long-winded answer, but TJ Malone on the Whips as well. Like, he's in top 5 in points as well. Look at his team. It's just him.
He's in 6th, actually.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I only know that because I'm literally looking at it right here.
But you get what I'm saying. It's hard for me when these discussions come up to be like, yeah, they for sure jumped him, because I'm like, it's such a minuscule amount, and one guy's getting no help, one guy's getting all the help. Yeah,
well, and my thought too is, I get Connor Schellenberger has more points. He actually only has a 1-point lead on Michael Sauers. He has a 2-point lead on Jeff Teat. However, as far as I'm concerned, Jeff Teat is the MVP of that Atlas team. That team goes the way Jeff Teat goes. I don't think. Again, I understand that Connor Schellenberger has put up more points, but for me, that Atlas offense's MVP is still Jeff Teat. He is the guy drawing the number 1 assignment. He is the guy, kind of putting everything into motion. And I also think that Pat Cavanaugh, who also is 1 point behind Shelley, has the same thing with Brennan O'Neill. We have talked about it repeatedly on this show. Brennan O'Neill is the number 1 offensive assignment on that thing, and Pat Cavanaugh is benefiting from being lower down on the pecking order. And not to say that he hasn't been absolutely fantastic. Same thing with Connor Schellenberger. They are taking advantage of every opportunity they are being given, but they are being given those opportunities because of who else is in their lineup. And to your point, Michael Sauers, and also to your point, TJ Malone, who is a little bit farther down on this list, he's a full 7 points behind Connor Schellenberger. But Michael Sauers does not have that help. And when his whole offense was clicking, they screwed it all up. They moved everything around, and I thought it looked better for a while this week when CJ was running out of the box in that first half. And then like you said, it just felt like they were, the defense was able to kind of key in on him and slow him back down. And I don't know. I just wondered kind of what you thought about that MVP race, because I saw a lot of people that were basically, admittedly, there's 2 weeks left and things will probably change. But as of the end of this past weekend in Utah, they were saying, it's Shelley at number 1.
And the thing is too, for real quick, for the Atlas fans listening, I would argue the exact same thing. I'm glad you brought it up for Pat Cav and Brennan O'Neill. So this isn't like me hating on them specifically. This is a situation where they have 2 bona fide superstars on that offensive unit. Michael Sowers doesn't have that. TJ doesn't have, like, all these other players do not have that. I also argued the same thing last year in the NLL with the Bandits when they had the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. And I was like, how can you be the MVP when you have someone else who's also an MVP finalist? Like, you know, both outstanding players in Dane Smith and Josh Byrne, but it's the same situation where it's like, it does kind of matter. And I feel like in all other categories, all other awards, we use that logic. Like, even goalies, we always bring up, well, how good is the defense in front of them? But then when it comes to something like this, all of a sudden people get on the timeline and say, well, look, he jumped him an MVP. And I'm like, but you have you have a guy who's literally 2 points behind him on his team.
Yeah, my thought is always whenever we talk about any of these awards, except for maybe Defensive Player of the Year, because I don't know that stats rank as well. Like, there are some guys that just don't get it. But generally speaking, when it comes to these awards, stats are kind of where I start. And if there's a big enough gap, it's like, okay, cool. You know, the difference between Connor Schellenberger and TJ Malone is big enough where it's like, okay, all right, we can rank Shelly up there. But whenever you're within, you know, 3 or so points, it's like, I mean, I think other things, it's not just straight stats. I think there has to be some kind of balance here. And
there's nuance for sure.
Right, exactly. There's nuance, and we don't talk about it. You know, if Kieran McCardle was top 5 in points, and you or I guess maybe top 6, and you had Shelley, Pat Kavanaugh, Sowers, Brennan, basically everybody's partner was the top 6, then like maybe we could talk about it. And yeah, Kieran McCardle's not super far out, but I think it still is a relevant conversation for sure.
Yep. And one more thing too, I will say 2 things really. The thing I will give Shelley over these other guys is he has the fewest turnovers outside of those top 6, aside from Brennan. He has the best shooting percentage by far at 44%, and that's on him to deliver, which he is. And he has a decent spread between goals and assists, so I'll give him that. The other thing, too, that we didn't even talk about is there's some goalies this year that I would argue have played well enough to also win MVP.
That's a fair point.
On the New York Atlas, are we going to put Shelley over Entenmann? You know, and I talked to you about this in the chat too. I don't know if he will win it, but like Brett Dobson has been incredible on a team that has been awful. You know, how do we then give credit to Dobson? Because I understand people want to see like how a player impacts winning, but it's like he's doing everything he can. So does that bump him then in the MVP conversation? You know what I'm saying? It's just, there's a lot of extra things to think about outside of just the attackman that I think could throw a wrench in even having Michael Sowers win MVP.
Yeah. Another thing I think, at least for me, it really counts is Shelley doesn't have a bad game.
True.
He's been very consistent. His bad game was the first game of the season when he only had 2 points. But even that, he still had 2 points. Yep. I think everybody else on that roster has a game with 0 points. Maybe not Brennan and Pat, but they probably have. I don't know.
Brennan for sure has had a 2-point game. I know that.
Yeah. But I do think that consistency comes. He's got 3 7-point games. Yeah. Like,
well, and he had the one that was all assists. So it's like he's helping his teammates as well, which is why I'm like, I'm not going to be like upset if he wins it. I just think there's some nuance in the discussion of like.
Yeah.
Who you have on the team.
No, and that's a very good point. None of this is to say he can't or shouldn't win it. It's more of just like there's more of a discussion than I think some people want to have right now. The second question out of this game after that very long question, if you were to start your team, field lacrosse PLL team today, who would you start with at the face-off? Trevor Baptiste or Joe Nardella?
Nardella.
No thoughts.
No. Go. I mean, pull up the numbers. I mean, he's a whole 6, almost 6 points ahead of Baptiste. He's another almost 5 over TD. Like,
But
he's
this
been
year.
dominant. Yeah,
He has been dominant, but that's this year.
Well-
I'm just
well-
saying we're talking. You're going to build a franchise, and you're looking for 10 to 15 years of face-off.
starting now, or are we doing all time? Like, if we're building an all-time team, that changes the answer. But if you're saying right now I have to pick from someone in the league, I'm taking Nardella.
Does it change the answer though?
I think
Let's say all time.
if we're going all time, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm inclined to go Baptiste because of how dominant I think he was.
Joe Nardella is 59.1% all time, and Trevor Baptiste is 64.7% all time.
Like I said,
But here's one thing. I think Joe Nardella doesn't really have a weakness. I feel like we just flipped sides of the argument. Joe Nardella, I don't think there's anybody that you look at and be like, oh yeah, he struggles with them.
Right.
Trevor Baptiste struggles with Joe Nardella.
right? Which is why I'm saying if we're talking about today, I have to pick someone to go start a rec league or whatever. I'm taking Nardella.
league.
I mean, like if
Listen, you
if
bring
Paul
either
came
one
to
of
me-
these two guys to
Okay,
rec
that-
league, and you are dominating.
that was I didn't mean it literally, but like if Paul Rabel and Mike Rabel came to me and said, Brandon, you are starting the newest PLL franchise. You get to pick any face-off artist in the league as they currently stand to lead your team. I'm taking Nardella because, like you said, Nardella not only is good against everybody else, but he always takes care of business against Baptiste for whatever reason. And that's not to say Baptiste isn't one of the best, because I still think he is a premier talent. But like the only thing that he has over Nardella this year, literally, that in my opinion really matters, is like the 2 points that he has. And even then, I would rather my face-off guy win the face-off and get it to someone else to go get a point. Anyway.
I do
So-
think that the other thing for Trevor is that he consistently puts up points. Not a million or anything, but he consistently gets you, 5 to 10 points a season.
That's fair.
And I don't know that Joe puts up quite those numbers. Not to say he will never put up a point or anything. So yeah, I don't know. I'm literally playing both sides. Yeah, there might even be an argument for a guy like TD Erlin. His career is 60.9. Technically, not as long of a career, but technically that's better than Joe Nardella.
Yep. But then again, that adds nuance, because if we're starting a team, then maybe do we have to say, hey, TD's been really good on a shortened time span, so maybe he has more years in him to play at that level.
I think the real conversation here, the debate here is you're going to get their whole career, whatever that was. Say we're in some weird time machine and you go get you start today with Joe Nardella in 2016 or whatever it was when he started. You start today with Trevor Baptiste in 2018 or whenever it was that he started. You start with TD Erlin in 2021 when he started, but you get them tomorrow. So you get their whole career, but you get to start tomorrow. And I don't ask this in any way thinking that there is an incorrect answer, which is probably why we're flipping back and forth. I just think the debate, the discussion is fun, and thinking about I know my Maryland guys are going to ride or die with Joe Nardella, and he has certainly done more than enough to be the face-off athlete of the year this year, barring some insane collapse this year. I think it's his.
Yep. Of course, I'm pretty sure we said the same thing last year, and he didn't win it.
But last year was...
I don't know what the difference was last year, but I remember seeing some discussion on the timeline.
Last year was 1.3%.
Okay.
But But that to me is where it comes down to like, okay, face-off percentage, that's close enough. We can kind of call that a wash. And so you start looking at everything else. And I think that's where Trevor won. People want to say it's because he's more marketable, he's more famous, whatever. I don't know that half these guys vote and care about fame, but like when you look at it and you look at the points, Trevor Baptiste had more points. Trevor Baptiste had less turnovers. He had more ground balls. Like in every other statistical category, Trevor won. So I know that Whipsnakes fans don't want to hear it, but I do think that when it's that close, and it ain't that close this year, but when it's that close, I think more than just, especially with how much the PLL is pushing, you know, the 32-second shot clock after a face-off, and trying the whole idea of like trying to make a face-off athlete more than just a fogo,
yep.
Which I think is ridiculous because they weren't fogos in this league anyway. But
yeah, no, I do actually like though that they're trying to make it more of like you can't do just one thing and get off the field. I do. So that from that perspective, like I do really appreciate guys like Trevor, TD, who, I mean, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these face-off artists have 2 or more points. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, but I appreciate when face-off guys can actually handle the ball. They can go score in addition to just facing off. But I don't think we can go wrong with any of those. Even if you said TD, if you look at TD's career, he's pretty consistent. Like these other guys kind of have a little, you know, peaks and valleys here and there, but TD's been pretty almost on a straight line his whole 5-year career, whatever it is.
it is really funny though that you're like, I like seeing that they're more than just fogos. And then you look at Joe Nardella, who is 5 points ahead, but he had 5 percentage points ahead in terms of face-off percentage. 0 points.
Yeah.
0 points, 5 turnovers. Like,
well, and it was
been mostly a foco.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying in general, like I was initially I was out on the 32-second shot clock because I was like, this is stupid.
Still
like,
out.
What, that's a bigger discussion. I'm not saying it's like the solution. I am saying I appreciate that it does put some urgency on if you win a clamp or whatever and you have a head start, like go make something out of it. Don't
for sure.
Don't instead if you like in college is one of my biggest gripes. If you win a face-off and then now you're just like, we're gonna pass the ball and and it takes a long time to get into that action. Whereas the pro, it's like get to the action.
Come watch Duke.
Yeah, I did last year when they lost 13-6 to Denver.
Hey. Shh. Come on, man.
Hey, sorry. I had to. You don't have a PLL team, so I got to take my digs where I can get them.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, I forgot when the possible Indianapolis Chrome come out. I hear Pat McAfee's interested.
Speaking of things we should talk about, I don't know if Pat McAfee's really all that interested in the PLL, but
I don't know. He's had Pat on several times. He's had Liam Entenmann on several times. I know he's been interested in the NLL as well as of late. So
here's the one thing about that though. He is the Indianapolis guy. Where's Indianapolis? It's in Indiana. Where's Notre Dame? It's in Indiana. So I think that's part of that is that he got really involved with Notre Dame lacrosse, and especially with the Kavanaughs, I think even more specifically. That being said, I'd love it. I am not at all saying it won't be him or it shouldn't be him. I would love it. I know people are like, oh, well, he loves lacrosse. And I'm like, well, I don't know if he loves it, but
I think it's one of those, like, it's a new thing that he's like, it's exciting when you see it. So he's like, it's if he was a dog, he'd have his ears kind of perked up, like, oh, like, what is this?
I do think he has a couple of guys on the show that are more lacrosse guys, which is part of the reason why I think it keeps getting pushed in the show is because those guys come up with like story ideas and stuff.
And they're very good at social media as well. Like Pat McAfee and all his boys, which is exactly what the PLL is good at. So you put those together and like, I think that'd be good.
It could work.
The only thing is that, to my knowledge, they haven't been to Indiana. Was that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously like that the initial investment obviously isn't going to be like, I'm buying a team. It's just going to be like, whatever. But I think it could be cool down the line to maybe be like, hey, I'm interested. Would you be willing to try it next year? And all of a sudden now you have, Chicago and Indiana, maybe that get teams in the near future.
Well, we have seen that the non-hotbed areas are really, really taking to the PLL. It is funny, though, because when this whole thing broke out on Twitter today, some people were joking about, Indiana Chrome. And I was like, because for anyone who doesn't know, this is like kind of a joke that I have run with. It wasn't a joke. It started not as a joke. It started as I really thought Carolina was going to get the Chrome were going to go to Carolina. And I just had kind of convinced myself of that so much that kind of, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a Chrome fan now. And and then that didn't happen. And then that's when it kind of really turned into a joke of like, oh, well, now I'm going to be the biggest Chrome fan ever because they're not even a team. And then I started buying merch because it was like, oh, I can like support a team without like supporting a team. I've had people reach out to me. Someone, I can't even remember who it was, and it's probably someone who listens to this podcast, and I apologize. I had a bunch of people send me cards. Someone reached out to me. Maybe it was Matt Shaler, maybe, and was like, hey, you're the biggest Chrome fan I know. I have all these Chrome cards. Do you want them? And they sent me a bunch of Chrome cards, and I didn't in the moment tell them like, hey, this is kind of a joke because they were doing something nice. And I was like, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you thought of me, and sure, I'll take it. And Chrome has Duke ties. So like, I think there were a couple of Duke guys that I got cards for and stuff. So like, it was a very nice gesture and I really did appreciate it. And I didn't want to look the gift horse in the mouth, but I was like, oh, that's weird. But that's to say, when the news started breaking, I started thinking like, man, we're going to have a really awkward situation. Some people think that maybe they'll end up in Chicago. And I'm like, you know what? I grew up a Chicago Bulls. I grew up a Chicago Bulls and a Chicago Blackhawks fan. I can probably get down with the Chicago Chrome. That could probably be legitimately my team. But if they end up in Minnesota, I've heard Columbus. Obviously, we're talking about this because of Indianapolis. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going to happen when I have all this Chrome merch and they land in Columbus. And I'm like, because if you know anything about me, I do not jive with Ohio State. I worked for Nick Meyer. I have done work for Nick Myers in Ohio State. I love you, Coach. You do a great job with that program. I enjoy working for you. But as a fan, I am not an Ohio State fan at all. So Columbus Chrome would be a travesty too. Anyway, rambling now. Let's move on to day 2 in Utah. We will start with the Waterdogs-Chaos game. The Chaos... Oh, you prepared for this? The Chaos sting the Waterdogs 15-14 in overtime.
That was so bad.
So bad, but also great.
I respect the pun, but man.
The dad jokes are alive, and I'm not even a dad. Anyway, this was an incredible game. So much fun. I can't even imagine what it was like being there.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like a roller coaster of like people were cheering for like both. I couldn't tell if they were cheering for both teams or if there was just a very dedicated section of Waterdogs fans and a dedicated section of Chaos fans. But the cheering was really, really well done for this game. Probably helps when you have 29 points rather scored between the two teams. But it was weird because Philly decided that they were going to pull DeLuca, which I've talked to people who both agree with it and disagree with it. I hear both sides. I'm not going to get into that. I don't really care. Dylan Ward had an off game. Just call it what it is. Jackson Eicher, unbelievable. Kieran McCardle didn't even realize he had 6 points till after the game. So shout out to him for being just Mr. Consistent and always being by the way, he's never been a PLL All-Star, just to put that out there for anyone voting and listening. You should be voting him every single year. Owen Hiltz, incredible, 5 points. Funny enough, like, a lot of Water Dogs actually had a pretty good contribution in this game after what I said earlier. It just felt like they were always just behind the 8 ball. At one point they were down, I think it was 13 to 9, I want to say, and they really had to dig deep to come back. And then you see, those 2-point goals happen, and it's like, okay, we're back. And then they let in another one, and they just couldn't get into a rhythm of like, hey, we're better than this other team. And again, I just don't know what they need to do. Like, even in overtime, I felt like, okay, Stavrakis is going to win this face-off, and they're going to go down and score. And it didn't play out that way again. And it just, it feels like for the second straight year, like, the bounces are not going their way, and they're not doing anything about it to make them go their way.
Yeah. First of all, to your point about the fact that he has not been a PLL All-Star, last week, we didn't talk about this, last week he became, I think it's one of only 5 people to break 500 points. He's just
so good.
Consistent. So good and so consistent, just consistently there and also consistently overlooked.
Yep.
And people just do not understand how good he is. And people with other podcasts, not necessarily our friends, but other podcasts, were suggesting that CJ should just immediately replace Kieran McCardle, and it's like, you guys don't understand what this Water Dogs team is and how well Kieran McCardle and Michael Sowers work together and play off of each other, and they are so good together. And it is a surprise that Michael Sowers ended the game with only 2 points, even though I do think the defense is keyed on him. It is not a surprise that Kieran McCardle ended with six points, other than the fact that he did it somewhat quietly. It was 4 assists, and most of the time assists are a lot harder to like really kind of track in your brain when you're just kind of watching a game and not actively taking notes or whatever. The other one that really kind of blew me away in this game was Jack Hanna. I thought he was, again, so good. Just kind of whenever they need him, steps up. But the decision to sit Matt DeLuca, I almost called him Ben DeLuca, the coach, Matt DeLuca, who, no relation, I don't think, sitting at 56%, it didn't make any sense to me. There was the fluke 2 that, yes, should not have gone in, but it's also not really his fault. Ben Randall was right in front of him. He didn't see it. It was a late thing. It's a goofy play that, yes, he should make a save, but also you can't really hold against him very much either. And then there was another one I remember being kind of fluky. I don't remember what it was, but there was another one that I was like, I don't feel like you can really hold that one against him either. So arguably probably was closer to 60% in that first half. And then sitting him, I won't say it's why they lost, but it didn't help. It didn't help. And I thought they had done some things really good in the first half. They had done a very good job of losing face-offs backwards and making the other team like pick it up and work the full length. The other team, like I don't know who they were playing. The Carolina Chaos were getting ground balls and having to work the full length of the field. I don't know. It was a weird game, but it felt like the Water Dogs were cruising, and then all of a sudden it felt like Chaos were cruising. It felt like 13-9, they were cruising, and then all of the sudden, after not hitting it, that was their first 2 of the year, right? I think is what they said.
It's something like that. They don't hit him.
I think it's what they. Yeah, I think it was either their first or they had hit one like really early in the season and then had not hit one. I can't remember exactly. But then they hit two back to back in really bizarre plays. The first one, just nobody stepped to the ball carrier whatsoever. Blaze lost his mind at his defense. And then they came right back down and just, they played slightly better defense on him, but just, hit it.
But the steal of the draft, Jimmy Freehill, bang that thing in. I told the people on draft night, Jimmy Freehill's a dog.
I mean,
you gotta respect him.
You got to respect him.
Clearly, the Chaos didn't, but the rest of us should, because obviously I'm just glazing just because he's a Denver guy, but he's incredible.
Obviously, but they hit those twos and all of a sudden it was like a tie game and it was just like, what just happened? Like you just thought this game was going to kind of peter out and the Chaos were just going to kind of cruise off and all of a sudden it was a tie game and I was like, oh, and then Chaos hits one. And you think, okay, it was just the twos. They're going to go, and then it wasn't. Zach Courier hit Courier. He's Courier, isn't he? He's not.
It's funny because
he's not French Canadian.
He's Canadian, but it is Courier. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not French Canadian. He's just Canadian. So Zach Courier, hit that goal with just over a minute left, and it was a tie game, and then. I don't know about you. I know you're not really a Waterdogs fan, but because of probably OTB a little bit, you got a little connection.
They were my unofficial team before the Outlaws came back, only because they had Dylan Ward. So I cheered for them, but I wasn't like I'm a Waterdogs fan. You know what I mean?
Fan.
But I do find myself like, especially now because they have Connor Kelly, who's a Mammoth player. Technically, Zed Williams is there. Jimmy Freehill now, so they do have some. Oh, Alex Stathakis, so they do have some guys, but
yeah. Well, and then of course Bill Tierney is the coach, so like you got connections now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering going into that overtime, what were you thinking might happen?
Well, like I said a few minutes ago, I literally, I think probably more than anything, tried to convince myself Stathakis was going to win the faceoff and they were going to go down and score because. I mean, minutes before, they had all the momentum. Like, I know that Chaos went up by one and then, they had to come back. But, 3 of the last 4 goals in the game were Philly. And you could, at least from where I was sitting on field, it felt like behind me, the momentum was just like, okay, this is a Waterdogs crowd now. Like, and at the time I didn't realize that Justin Inacio was playing as well as he was. I thought looking at the numbers, like they were pretty even. They were even 15 of 27 each. But I just felt like momentum's on their side. Like they know what's at stake right now. They're gonna come down and score, and then it just didn't happen. Jackson Eicher just continued his domination, and I mean, as soon as he shot it, I was like, that thing's going in. Like I was literally in line with him when he shot it. And I was like, yeah, that's going. And then I saw the replay, and Dylan Ward is quite literally on the outside of the crease.
Outside of the crease, yep, I saw that.
I want to be careful with how I say this. I will defend Dylan Ward more than most because I've literally watched him play his entire box career, like start to finish, and he's not finished yet, obviously. But so I'm going to defend him more with his high arc style than most people will. Because I do think at times, especially in box, it can help. The argument in field that I've always argued against is, even if you're closer so you appear bigger, I have a stick that I can shoot around you. And so when he is quite literally 5 to 6 feet away from the goal, I don't really know what that's doing, aside from doing a disservice to him and his defense, because now he has less time to see the ball coming at him. And that's exactly what happened on this play.
Yeah, well, and the way that you beat the high arc is with ball movement, and the bigger field, literally in field as opposed to box, means almost any pass is going to give you an angle to beat him because of where he is so far out. And
I love the fact that he stepped into the save. I just don't like that he steps into the save. Like he did not need to scoot that far out into it. You know what I mean? It's just I mean, great placement. Credit to Jackson Eicher. But
I actually really enjoyed the overtime period. I thought, I thought when Alex Sathakis won that overtime face-off, I thought, oh, this is a problem. Like I thought kind of the same thing. I didn't think it until he won the face-off, but when he won the face-off, I thought, oh, here we go. And then it actually went back and forth because CJ had a shot and then it went down and Joshua Wada had. Actually, no, I take that back. Joshua Wada had a pretty decent shot. I think the shot I was thinking of was way earlier. And then it went back down. Michael Sowers had a shot and Connor Kelly. And I got to say, if in overtime, CJ Kirst, Michael Sowers, and Connor Kelly all get a shot for you and you don't win the game, it just wasn't meant to be, I guess. Like, those are maybe you throw a Jack Hanna in there, but like those are probably the three guys you'd most want to, or maybe three of the four guys that you'd most want to be taking that shot. So, and then when it came back down, when Owen Hiltz picked it up, I was like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? And then when I didn't know who it was until he started making the pass, but when I could see the guy moving on that far side of the field, and I was like, if he hits this pass, I think it's game over. And then as the ball's in the air, I realized it was Jackson Eicher, and I was like, oh yeah, the game he's having, yeah, it's I don't care who's in that goal. You could have taped up everything, but just about 3 inches, I think Jackson Eicher would have hit it the way he was playing. So incredible game. We should. I would like to say Jackson Eicher, incredible. I think. I don't know where he is. Here we go. That's what I was looking for.
Don't even do it. Don't even do it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Fine, you do it. What do you want to say? What do you want to say?
There's another rookie on his team that has been exceptional.
I'm not saying he's going to win it. I'm not saying he's going to win it.
I don't even think he's a finalist. Because again, this is similar to the MVP talk. He has another rookie on his team that's played less games, has been more impactful, arguably, has more points. I mean, I'm a fan of Jackson Eicher. Like, he's incredible. But I don't think voters are going to lean that way with the other guys that are ahead of. I mean, even think about a guy like Sam King, who we've talked about half jokingly being the best attackman on that Archers roster as a rookie. Are you taking a guy like Jackson Eicher over Hilton King before we even discuss McNaney, Kavanaugh, Carroll?
I go back to first of all, there are 5 finalists. So remember that.
Okay.
And secondly, I go back to what you did against expectations.
Sure.
And I think both Carolina as a team have far exceeded expectations. We're looking at them potentially being the number 2 seed in the West when we all thought coming into this season they were going to comfortably be not that they wouldn't win a game or anything, but they were going to relatively comfortably be the worst team in the league. And they may end up being the second best team in the West. And the expectation of Jackson Eicher having been undrafted. And I know that probably had more to do with his military obligations and whether or not people thought he'd be able to be on the field much this year, much less next year or the year after that. Then it was necessarily a lacrosse decision. But still, he was an undrafted guy that I don't think people was on people's radar coming into the season, and he's there. I think he's got a very good shot at being a finalist. I agree. I don't think he's going to win. I don't even think he's the most likely to win on his team, but I think there's a very, very good case for him to be there.
So you're saying that he's going to be a finalist over McNaney, Kavanaugh, Carroll, King, and Hiltz?
Well, he's only got to be a finalist over one of them.
So is he a finalist over any of them? Because the other thing you have to consider is look at the games. He's had 2 stellar performances, and the rest have kind of been up and down. Now, to our previous discussion, it doesn't help when your offense as a whole doesn't have the same talent. So I will absolutely put that caveat on it. My pushback on that would be Owen Hiltz is doing it on the same team, averaging 4 points a game.
I would say right now he's just outside of those 5.
So what would he have to do then to jump one of them?
I think it's less about him.
Okay.
As long as he's playing consistent, I think it's less about him. I think Aiden Carroll is right there on the edge. And again, I think that also is somewhat about expectations. Him, it's more about the expectations of the Whipsnakes and just how bad they have been at times. Personally, although I don't think it happens, I'm less impressed with Chris Kavanaugh. I don't think Iker's necessarily better. And it's not even hate because, like, I get it. Chris Kavanaugh has been great, but, like, the team is bad, and, like, we knew he was going to be good, and the fact that his team is just not, like, I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. My follow-up was, of the 5 that I named, I think Chris Cav would be the only one that I could say I feel like had enough expectation coming in that, like, he's meeting it, but like you said, we knew what he was going to be. Whereas, like, Sam King literally being the best player on their offense, none of us had that. I think Aiden Carroll has, at least to my knowledge, I was the only one to take him for Rookie of the Year. Like, he didn't have that expectation. I think you took Jackson Iker, I believe. Did you not?
No.
That wasn't you?
No, because he wasn't on my radar early. I'm trying to think of who.
Well, either way, like, he's like you're talking about expectation. Yeah. He's outperforming his, and I think Owen Hiltz has also outperformed his in, less games played. Unfortunately, Matt Trainer, I think, is officially kind of on the outside. He'd have to have a crazy final 2 games, but
that might have been who I took.
Okay, well, hey, still a great pick, but I do kind of wonder, like, if they're saying, hey, their offense hasn't been good, and yet here's 2 rookies that have been really solid for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I agree with you that I think in a weird way it's kind of harsh to be like, hey, the expectation for Chris Kavanaugh was here, and he's here or maybe here, but he's right kind of at that expectation, and to be like, that means it's not enough. I recognize that's probably harsh, but just when I look across the season, I haven't felt all that excited about what Chris Kavanaugh's doing, which I think emotion plays into this, at least for me. Maybe the guys voting, they will remove all emotion. Maybe that's the case. And then the reason that I have Aiden Carroll just kind of right there teetering is because he did have the back-to-back 1-point games. He then did finish it up with a 4-point game, and so if that wave continues and he kind of goes back up, obviously he's in. But if he slips back again, then I think Iker could definitely jump him. But
and realistically, like, we're talking about finalists. I think even of the finalists, there are a few that I don't think have a real shot, unfortunately. Yeah. Which, again, and this is what I both love and hate about these award discussions and lacrosse in general, is just like, everyone is so good. Like, it feels wrong to say, like, oh yeah, this guy has no shot. All these guys should have a shot. You know what I mean? But I look at, like, McNaney is probably a good chance of winning it. I think Sam King has a really good chance of winning it. And I think, honestly, Owen Hiltz being as great as he's been with fewer games was also kind of propelled him above some of these other guys that will be finalists, unfortunately.
I wonder if, I'm not saying it should, but I wonder if Owen Hiltz missing so many games will be held against him. I know in the games he's played, obviously he's been incredible, but sometimes when it comes to these discussions, they say, hey, you know, kind of like we were talking earlier, if you're around the same points, obviously the guy that played 4 games, you know, they're going to say, hey, he played less games, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure that that's always fair, but...
Well, it's funny because we had the same discussion about McNaney missing 2 games, you know, and this is a situation where Hiltz will have missed, if he plays the rest of the season, 3 games. And it's like, if, you know, he's literally 3rd among rookies in points. And he's 2 points off of being tied for 1st in 3 less games.
I think the counter argument for that is defenses don't have tape on you. And
Sure.
when you only get to practice once a week, it's like, you know,
Sure.
I don't know. There's this whole like juggling act of all of it. I'm not saying any of it is right. This is one of those where I'm like, if you can make a logically sound argument, I'm not going to fight you on it. I think even if I think you're wrong, like I'm not going to push too hard because it's like, I mean, like you said, so many of these guys are great. Like
I'm just glad we don't have to vote because, I don't know that I can make decisions. I would send my ballot back blank and be like, sorry guys, I can't decide.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it because you were probably traveling, but after the games on Saturday night, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't remember, I tweeted the top 4 goalies are within half a percentage point of save percentage.
It's insane.
And it's like I don't know how you're gonna pull a goalie of the year out of this. And no matter who gets selected, you know, 7/8 of the league is maybe not 7/8 because there's probably a few goalies that just don't deserve, you know, Waterdogs probably, but
well, they don't really have a bona fide starter right now either, which is
that's fair. That's fair. But a good probably half the league is going to be like, what the hell, dude? Our guy was just as good, or you know, in their eyes, probably better. But like you said, I don't envy anyone who's got to make these decisions this year. There's rarely a clear-cut winner, but this year it feels like it's not between 1 or 2 guys. In almost every single award, it's between like 4, 5, 6 guys in every single position. So let's move on to the last game of the weekend. Probably one of the most fun, probably the most fun game of the season. Maybe not necessarily the best game, but one of the most fun. I mean, it ended, the Outlaws beat the Archers 15-10. As we talked about earlier, this was an Archers team without Grant Ament, without Tom Schreiber. And for a while, it looked like the Outlaws thought they were just going to win just by showing up. They were all over the place. They were crazy sloppy. It was a pretty sloppy game all around. There were 45 turnovers in this game. What was it like being there? This was 100% booing. This whole crowd was in. They were booing Brennan O'Neill every single time he touched the ball. He was returning that by playing incredibly. He hit 2 2s, had 2 1-point goals, and had 2 assists. Wait, is that right? Did I just make that up? I might have just made that up.
He just had the 2. Oh no, he did. He did actually. He had 2 1-point goals, 2 2-point goals.
Yes, and no assists. That's what I messed up. I was like, wait a minute. That's more than 6 points. He finished with 6 points. Pat Cavanaugh also somewhat quietly also had 6 points. He had 2 goals and 4 assists. What was this one like being there?
It was awesome. Second straight year. I still wish they would have changed the matchup and done this one in Denver next week, just so we can kind of, return the favor.
I was gonna say I'm a little bummed next week that we're not gonna get it. I get not wanting to do it in back-to-back weeks, but one of the bummers of having Utah and that was weird for anyone who was watching that. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe you were looking away, but anyway, let's move on. I understand not having it back to back and having those two locations so close together, but I do almost wish we could have had Utah or Denver at the beginning of the season and had these two teams match up, and then next week or this past week or whatever was the other one, and we got the matchup again. So sorry, but other than that, I interrupted you. You go.
Very good. Yeah, it was what you want to see essentially from both of these teams, really, because I thought Utah played pretty well considering they didn't have some of their players. Whether that is
hungry.
Yeah, whether that's the Outlaws playing down or Utah playing up, I'm not going to say one or the other. I will say this game was lost for Utah in the middle of each quarter. I mean, you look at when they scored goals, they scored at the beginning of the quarters, they scored at the end. That middle section, they were awful on that end. And I think, too, like they let in 4 2-pointers from the Outlaws. And I think, like, we know Brennan is incredible, but, like, to give him 2 of them, you're giving the best shooter on the field 2 2-pointers. And then you go down and Ryan Terefenko gets a 2-pointer.
That's
and
the one.
Jake Piscino gets a very big juice 2-pointer. That wasn't just, hey, we scored a 2. It was, we need to reclaim the game. Because at that point, it was, fairly close still. And I felt like this truly was a game of, like, momentum shifting back and forth to where Dobson was playing well. And, like, he was making saves and the crowd was getting loud for just normal saves. And I was like, okay, so this is going to propel them. And it did for a while. But it just kind of got to a point where, like, Pat Cav was dishing the ball so efficiently that Brennan was able to get open shots. I know people love to say coming into this game that Graham Hossack was, like, Brennan's kryptonite. And I'm not denying that he didn't have 2 good games against him, but I'm sorry, when Brennan is making you stop in your tracks and then eating a shot to get a goal and then screaming in your face about it, like, you're gonna feel that. And that's exactly what he did all game long. And it was hilarious hearing them boo him and then him pop off like that. Because as the game went on, the boos got quieter and quieter and quieter. And it got to a point where he scored that last goal, and it was just, like, dead silent. Like, it was clearly the end. And, I love Utah fans. They're incredible. They're nice people as well. From what I understand, I was talking to some of the Rough Riders that were there. There was no, like, bad blood or, like, anything bad said to them, which is awesome. So shout out to their fans, but it was kind of funny seeing it go, like, start really high energy and then just kind of drop.
Yeah, no, that's why I say it was the most. It wasn't the best game, but it was the most fun. Like I said, it ended 15-10. It kind of ultimately wasn't all that close. There was a few minutes here and there in kind of the third where you thought, oh, maybe this is gonna be pretty good, but yeah, they kind of ran away with it in the fourth quarter. But you and I talked. We've talked several times about it, but most recently, sort of maybe second week of the season, about Brennan's tendency to kind of fade, especially in a physical matchup, and how much of it I thought was really him choosing to do that. It wasn't that he couldn't beat a physical matchup. At times, I think he has not been able to. When he was lined up against Chris Fake for Duke, against Notre Dame or Yale, he definitely was kind of taken out of that game. And I think maybe the lesson, because he was pretty young. And I think the lesson that he took out of that was like, oh, I'll just kind of fade back and pull, the Chris Fakes, the Graham Hossacks, the big burly guy out of the defense. They'll occupy me, and I'll just kind of pull them out. I'll recede out of this game a bit, and we can kind of play 5-on-5, generally speaking. But earlier this season, I told you, I can't remember who they were playing. Maybe it was Chris Conlon. I don't remember who he was playing, but it was another big physical matchup, and he didn't do amazing. I think he only finished the game with 2 points, but I saw him just continue to attack that matchup and go at it and take the ball.
It was against Graham Hossack. He shot 0 for 10, 2 points against Graham Hossack. It was the game that at the end Hossack had to go guard JB10.
Why did I think Graham didn't play that game? Maybe that was last year.
Hang on, let me double check. But I'm almost certain we discussed that because I remember saying it felt like Brendan was almost forcing things at one point just to get shots up.
I thought it was Graham as well, but then for something
he played that game.
Okay, so then it was the Graham Hossack game, because I remember being like, that's a game he would have receded.
Yeah.
And instead he just kept attacking it. And that was not something I had really seen him do. It's something I had wanted to see him do because I knew he could beat it. And even in that game, he was getting a step or two. He just wasn't hitting shots. And that's not to say Graham Hossack wasn't good on it. The crappy thing about being a defensive player is you can play 90% perfect defense, and that 10% could be a 6-point game.
Yep.
For the guy that you're lined up against. It's terrible that's the thing. And then also I think you can play not amazingly and the guy misses all his shots and you look like $1 million because he went 0 for 10 or whatever. But all that to say, this, like we have talked about since that All-Star game, he has been loose. He has been free. He has just kind of attacked. And I think we talk about how much Brennan O'Neill helps Pat Cavanaugh. I think that's the benefit of Pat Cavanaugh. Something about these two in the last few weeks for guys who were such rivals when it was Duke and Notre Dame, they look like best friends. They look so comfortable with each other. They look like such a complementary pair for each other. I don't know. It's really fun watching those two play together now. And
Neil Barrett with a Pat Cavanaugh compliment. Wow, coming around, are we?
I don't know that I'd say coming around. But also, I mean, you literally can't argue with his season.
No, for sure. I'm just giving you a hard time because
I know. And you're also not exactly wrong either. Like, let's be real. There's some bias there for sure. As much as I try to put all my biases to the side when we have these legitimate conversations, like again, you just can't argue with what he's done this season. And even in the case where I think, like we talked about with Shelley and Teat, where I think Brennan O'Neill is maybe more the MVP of this team, in terms of actually winning the MVP of the award, like I get why you would say Pat Cavanaugh. Statistically, he's been better.
Yeah.
So I can't argue with that. But weird note, I guess. JB10 looked awful.
Yeah.
He had, what was it? Was it 5 turnovers? I think.
Yep.
5 turnovers. And at least 4 of them were completely unforced. There was the one he was just cradling and the ball just flew out in front of him. There was the one where he was kind of setting up to dodge and just fell over, dropped the ball. There was another one sort of similar. I know there was at least 4 of those were just completely unforced. He didn't get a check. He just was holding the ball and dropped it. And for a guy who looked so good, I couldn't believe how bad he looked today. He had 30 touches and there was nothing to show for it except for 5 turnovers.
Yeah. But that's where it comes into play that like it's good that there are other guys that can pick up the slack because I mean, you know, some other teams out there, if he's doing that, like the team's going to struggle. But I thought that the rest of the offense really like rallied and was just like, hey, it's just one of those games. You know, you can't play well every single week. And unfortunately too, like when you've been as dominant as he has, for the lack of a better term, like then when you see this, it's like, oh, you're like really out of character, which is fair to say. But I just think it's one of those games that just like literally the bouncers didn't go his way 5 times.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, had he put the ball in the back of the net once or twice, you know, maybe it's not as big an issue. But because it's amplified that there was no goal or assist, it's like, ugh.
Well, and not just that too, but he didn't really do anything. He only took 3 shots. So he had 30 touches, turned the ball over 5 times, and only had 3 shots. So he was really just kind of out there as a body dropping the ball. Yep. Literally.
And I mean, the Outlaws, or not the Outlaws, the Archers defense did a pretty decent job from what I could see of not letting him get an open runway. Every other game that he's played, except for, you know, that first or second game, he's literally been on like a speedway and just, he's coming out of the box and he's beating you every single time. Whereas from what I saw this game, it felt like that Utah said, we're going to stop you before you even get ahead of steam. So you can't just run all over us. Like you're going to have to make a decision. And that's where some of those turnovers occurred then. And it's like, oh, if you're going to slow it down, you can't drop the ball in a literal sense. Like you got to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. But to your point, they have enough guys that they can just kind of step up. And the stat that I saw that blew me away, Brennan O'Neill and Pat Cavanaugh combined for 113 touches. Pat Cavanaugh had 60, Brennan O'Neill had 53. That is insane.
Yeah.
And all in 113 touches, they had 1 combined turnover more than Jared Bernhardt did by himself. And to what you were saying earlier, Pat Cavanaugh also had 5 turnovers, but he literally had double the touches, 6 points, and shot the ball 10 times. Like you were saying, you can have some turnovers as long as you're contributing other things. But when you're not contributing anything else and you're so out of the offense that you're not even getting shots, it's like, what are we doing? Yeah. But I think the thing that we have to talk about next is Sam King. Incredible for him. He finished the game on 4 points. He was the leading point getter for admittedly a not great Archers offense, but missing 2 of their biggest weapons. He really stepped up in ways that Connor Fields and Mac O'Keefe and all of their kind of bigger names, Ryan Ambler, those guys didn't do. And what I found really interesting is that he has already broken the Archers rookie points record already, which was set by Grant Ament himself, who had a great rookie year. And Sam King has already beat it, and he's got at least 1 game left.
Yep.
Looks like it could be only 1 game left, but we will see about that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know that there's really much else to talk about the Archers in this game. Like you said, I thought they looked hungry. They looked, Brian Nozelax, he was talking to us. He thought the Archers were going to win this game, which we all thought he was crazy, but he did. And several other people pointed out that the Archers are usually at their best when they're up against the wall, and they played like a team that was up against the wall and needed to win, but they at least needed to make a statement. And I don't know that they quite made a statement, but they did not look as bad as I think most of us would have expected.
No. And again, scores wise, it was 11-9.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
like that's, I know the scoreboard says 5, so it looks like it was a blowout, but like it was a pretty close game, all things considered. It just so happens that there was more twos scored on one side than the other. And it begs the question on, should they be shooting more when they're down, 3 offensive players with Matt Moore not missing the rest of the year? Probably. But they also only hit one. So you can't risk possessions if you're not going to hit a bunch of them. But I do wonder, like, here in 2 weeks, if that's an emphasis of just like, hey, we need score differential, if nothing else. Like, let's start bombing twos.
Yeah, but they're going to need some help, yeah?
I mean, Chaos has minus 15 right now. Utah has minus 14. So not only does Utah need to win, Carolina needs to lose their last 2 games.
It's going to be interesting.
Yep.
So,
and realistically, they're also going to need California to preferably lose both their games as well.
That is a whole nother thing because I really don't want them ending up with that number 1 pick, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's move on to your hometown, Denver, next week. The first game of the weekend is the Carolina Chaos versus the Denver Outlaws. I am not sure that anyone's going to give Carolina much of a chance going up against the Denver Outlaws in this game.
The Red Legion will.
Well, I mean, the Red Legion is always going to give the Carolina Chaos a chance. And to be fair to the Carolina Chaos, we said the Utah Archers were at their best when their backs were up against the wall. Carolina Chaos are at their best when nobody thinks they're going to win. So,
yep. And I'll give them this as well. Like, the last 2 weeks, the Outlaws have looked beatable, in my mind at least. So if I'm Carolina, I'm coming into this feeling actually probably pretty good because no one really believes in us at that point. You have nothing to lose. Like you're sitting in a bad spot, point wise, score differential wise, but like that just plays into we have nothing to lose. This team looks beatable the last couple of weeks. Like, let's go win. In their hometown, in their homecoming as well. Like, you want to spoil that.
Right. Well, and I mean, like we have said all year, Blaze in net is always going to keep you in a game. It doesn't really matter who you're playing. It's hard to say always when they did get beat by 14 at one point this year, but
most times
that anomaly aside, having Blaze in net is enough to keep you in games pretty much all the time. So,
and they have a good defensive front in front of him too. That they're not going to give up easy looks all too often. So,
sure.
and again, if Bernhardt doesn't contribute, if some of these other guys struggle, this could be a very close game. Yeah,
I don't think that any of us expect Carolina to win, though. I think we don't generally do pick'ems, but I think this would be one where we would fairly comfortably say the Outlaws should win this game.
Yes.
So let's move on to game 2 of the weekend, where the Philadelphia Waterdogs will take on the Boston Cannons. The Cannons were off this week, so we didn't see them. I would say the last time that we saw them was them losing to the Outlaws, and I don't know that they looked amazing. Obviously, they scored 17 goals, so I guess that's pretty good, but I don't know. But then again, the Waterdogs didn't exactly look amazing this past week either. So both teams kind of against the same team too, it should be said. The Cannons lost to the Chaos 2 weeks ago, and the Waterdogs lost to the Chaos this week. So similar competition there in terms of trying to project forward. Where are you at with this game?
I honestly don't know. I thought Dylan Ward was in line to start prior to this Utah weekend because DeLuca was starting. So in my head, it was going to be DeLuca this week, Ward in Denver. But then Ward played 70% of that game. So now does DeLuca play? If DeLuca plays, I think they have a better chance of beating this Boston team. But they just have a lot of questions around them. And I think coming off of rest for Boston, like they know they need to perform. And again, like I said earlier, they have 3 games left, most of any team in the league. So while they do have a little bit of cushion, it starts this week with you need to win this and get on to your homecoming and win those. So I lean Boston just because I think on paper they're probably better, but it doesn't shock me just like if Philly comes out and plays well because we've seen them play well. And there's a reason that they've split their games. It's not like they're a bad team. They just have these really high highs and these really low lows, unfortunately.
Will CJ have more points than he had this past week?
Yes. He's just going to keep getting better. He's warming up to the pro level. He'll be fine.
I actually thought he looked fairly good in the midfield this week. I thought he just kind of couldn't get his shots to drop, but I liked where he was taking up. I liked the dodges he was making, and he played this week more like a midfielder, whereas last week he was picking up the ball a lot and carrying it down to X and trying to dodge, whereas this week he looked more like a Jack Hanna, kind of picking the ball up top, making a move, and trying to make more of a midfielder kind of play, quote unquote. And I'm like you, I would tend to agree. Not that it's saying much to say, oh, he'll outperform 1 point. But I do think maybe he ends up with 2 goals, maybe an assist, maybe he has a 3-point game or something. Maybe he goes off for all I know. I don't want to be, listen, the CJ Karst fans are real. And I don't need you guys coming at me being like, he's going to have 6. I'm not saying he won't. I'm just saying I agree with you that I think he goes for more than 1 like he did this past week. Ultimately, though, I think the Cannons win this game. Barring Michael Sowers having a 6+ point game, I think the Boston Cannons win this game and head into their homecoming weekend on a bit of an upswing. I hope. Let's move on to the third game of the weekend where the New York Atlas will once again take on the Denver Outlaws, this time on only about 17 hours of rest. It was already going to be a really tough game, obviously, for the Denver Outlaws going up against the best team in the league, I think is fair to say. They technically have the same record. They're number 1 in the West, number 1 in the East. But I think given how these games have played out over the last few weeks, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Atlas are the best team in the league, whereas Denver may be the hottest team in the league. So being the Denver guy, being that this game is in Denver, how are you feeling?
I already wasn't feeling great because you're playing... I mean, you and I have said this for several weeks now. You're playing the best team in the league on a back-to-back. It was already going to be bad. And then to see them they call it flexed. I don't know that I'd use that word because that has a positive connotation to it. They definitely got the shorter end of the stick here, bumping that game up by 7 hours. That's a massive jump to play the best team in the league. So, I'm leaning the away team here.
Yeah.
I mean, and the problem too is it's technically 17 hours, but it'll be 14 hours from end time to start time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's 17 from start to start.
I recognize that there have been some scheduling kerfuffles. That's a good word right there. Throughout the year.
Kerfuffles.
for other teams. I'm not saying that they're the only team that's dealt with this. I am saying they're the only team that has been flexed into this position, and I don't like it. So, but I understand you want this game on ABC, the number one in the East, number one in the West. Both teams still need to show up. So I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means. Maybe it is. I don't personally think it will be. But I do struggle to see an outcome where Denver plays really well. Thankfully, they already have playoffs locked up and Champ Series locked up. But you still want to get a win in front of your home crowd. Preferably two.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's tough because I agree with you. It's not a good position. It's not. I'm not sure that it's going to work the way that they think it is. I understand the thought process of like number one versus number one, you know, it being a prime time, like linear game. Maybe I shouldn't use the term prime time, but because I think it's at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I understand the idea of like wanting to get that onto linear television, but at what point does that not, is that not the best version of the game to put on TV? Because you are dealing with one team who's going to have played a game less than 17 hours earlier against a very good Carolina Chaos team who's trying to wrap up, a very good and physical Carolina Chaos team who's trying to wrap up second place. They're trying to hold on to where they are in the Western Conference. You could honestly argue that neither New York or Denver have really much to play for, other than technically the bye. I think is technically in play, but for Denver, having the bye could actually end up being a problem for them, because if they get it, they won't play for a month.
Yep.
So you could honestly argue that not getting the bye is better for Denver. So you're going to have one team that's arguably the best team in the league playing a team that played a game less than 17 hours ahead, who also arguably would be fine with the loss. It's one of those things that like makes sense why you flex it, but also feels like you're going to end up with a worse game, which I feel like they do all the time. I feel like every time they flex a game into a linear TV spot, it ends up being a worse game. But for the game itself, like you said, I think it was already going to be tough. It was already likely to be. I think the Atlas were going to be the favorites. If this was the one game this week, you know, even with it being in Denver, with everything going Denver's way, like 100%, I think they still likely would have been the underdog. And everything that we've talked about just kind of pushes them more and more and more into that underdog role. So, I don't think it's any stretch to say that Atlas are probably going to win this. I think maybe the best hope is that Outlaws come out and they want to prove something, kind of like the Archers did, and they're just hungry and they're just fighting for everything. The good news is, when this game's over, assuming you win it, you ain't got nothing to worry about for a month. You can rest. You can take all the break you need for a month.
Yep.
So maybe
this is the end of their regular season. I just realized that too.
Right. That's why, because they won't play next week. Then I believe there's a bye. Like the league is off for a week, I think. Then there's the first round of the playoffs, and then I think there's another bye. So that's why if Denver gets the bye, they won't play for a month. So it's really, like I said, hopefully that's what happens. I'm just not really holding my breath.
Yeah. I think next year they're going to have to probably eliminate first and last week buys, because I think it causes this type of thing to work. I think it hurt Philly a little bit. I know they started off hot, but I think it does hurt to not play that first week.
Yeah.
And then I think it's going to hurt a team like Denver in this situation where now they're not playing for literally a month.
Yeah, I have a little inside baseball. I have a whole conversation discussed about changes in the PLL from top to bottom that I want to do, but it's a after season kind of conversation when we don't have tons of games to go through every single week. With all of that being said, let's move on to the last game of the weekend where the Maryland Whip Snakes will take on the California Redwoods. This is kind of dumpster fire versus dumpster fire as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. I think perhaps the Whip Snakes are in a slightly better position because I think you can see how they can get out. I think they're maybe not massively better, but I think they're better kind of from top to bottom. And I think we saw the blueprint last year, just like we talked about. We saw the blueprint last year. We have seen the blueprint this year. If they let these young guns run and do their thing, I think they are in a better position than the California Redwoods are right now. I think the California Redwoods have a ton of talent. They can win this game. Both of these teams are relatively even in my mind. I just think the Redwoods or the Whip Snakes, are just slightly better put together right now.
Yeah, I won't argue anything. This is a coin flip game for me. I literally might actually flip a coin this week just because they're in like the same spot in my mind of just they both need the win, and they're both in like a good position to get the third playoff spot. Funny enough, even though one has a positive score differential and one has a negative, but they're in that same kind of situation of just like you're kind of far enough ahead that you can not take your foot off the gas. You need to play well, but I'm just saying like you don't need to be the best of the best. The only downside for Maryland is that Boston has 3 games, so they can make up that 11 goal differential pretty quickly in 3 games. So that's something to maybe monitor. I think probably that will propel Maryland to play probably a little bit harder because I think it'll be easier for Boston to catch up to Maryland than it will be for Utah to catch up to California and then possibly Carolina to catch up to California if the Woods end up jumping the Chaos. So
yeah.
Either way, I'm excited for the game. I think it should be a pretty close one overall. It's just going to be, I just don't have a read on it like at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, like you said, I think a coin toss is a very good way to put it. I'm going to lean ever so slightly towards the Whip Snakes. I think their defense is a little bit better. I think they also have the blueprint to win. I think the Redwoods are still kind of figuring out. It's kind of so far their wins have come when like one guy has taken over, but it's never the same guy twice. So, you know, if Andrew McAdory or Dylan Malloy or Chris Kavanaugh or whoever steps up, can they win 100%? It's just not a kind of defined blueprint. Whereas I think Maryland has that blueprint of like TJ Malone is kind of your guy and everyone's kind of supporting him. And that, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to lead the team in scoring. Levi Anderson can do it. Brad Smith can do it. Like they have guys that can do it, but just let those guys kind of do their thing. Before we get out of here, let's circle back to that NLL conversation real quick, and I'll just let you start and go. I know you got some stuff to say.
Yeah, essentially. So there's 2 things. One is we'll start with the positive. Sounds like the Rochester Nighthawks are on track to have an owner.
By the way, I saw some people saying that it could be the Indianapolis.
That's
Nighthawks.
what I said. I said that in our chat. I said I think it was. I said Indianapolis Nighthawks. Something rather. I was like, this makes sense because Pat McAfee has said recently that he is on board with box lacrosse. So I said that half jokingly, but that would be cool. But that's great news. Sounds like if the NLL figures out the CBA, there will be a team in Rochester. But as far as like what's being said from the Toronto Rock's owner, I understand that he's an owner and he's negotiating and he needs to play his hand and get the best deal he can. I am not on board with going on podcasts and essentially trashing the process and saying that your players don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how much it costs to run the league, how if it's not done in a month, like let's just take the year off, and how you're going to have your phone on D&D being in Florida. And that's nearly a direct quote, by the way. All of everything I just said. So, and it sucks because that's a bad look for the sport in general, because it makes you look like you're not a serious entity at all. And it's frustrating when it's only one owner doing it repeatedly. Again, he's entitled to his feelings 100%. I'm never going to say he shouldn't feel that way because he is bargaining. But to double down and literally say you're just going to give up if it doesn't get done in a month, it's ridiculous. Like, and honestly, if you're going to keep talking about how no one knows how much it costs to run the league, maybe you should put that out there. Let's be transparent. If it's a situation where you're saying, hey, it costs too much to fly or whatever, which I saw someone on Twitter this week bring up the fact that airlines are kind of doing some sketchy things that could be causing problems. I'm fine with that. 2 years ago, though, the NLL's made unified standings. And I remember having a conversation with people at Ball Arena in Denver about this and about how it's going to cost a lot more to fly these teams now, literally across the continent. You're going from San Diego to Halifax and vice versa now. And instead of doing that once every few years, you're doing that every single year, back and forth. That type of stuff. Let's go back to conferences. Let's get rid of this, make it easier. Let's make it cheaper on travel. Let's do all that. So this complaining on podcasts about how, well, the players don't know. Educate the players then if they really don't know, please. Because I'm tired of hearing about this every time he speaks about how this is this World War III, as he put it, the first time he was on the podcast. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You're making the league look bad. You're making the sport look bad. You're making yourself look bad. And I saw people defending him and what he's saying. You're entitled to feel how you want to feel. But I'm kind of tired of us shooting ourselves in the foot as a sport, as a league, whatever. Like, it's ridiculous. Let's figure out the CBA. Players want to play. Owners want to make money. But saying that players won't care until they miss game checks, you're just insulting the players. Like, it's ridiculous. I recognize that he probably doesn't need this league to make money, but like, come on, man. Like, let's cut out the childish BS that continues to come out week after week and just get on with it. Let's get a CBA. Let's play a season and have fun. So
yeah, I would. The players don't know the inner workings of the financial. That's fairly standard CBA stuff.
Yeah.
The players usually don't know. Like, that's fine. That's fair. But so much of what he said seems to go beyond the kind of like black and white. The players don't know what we're dealing with, blah, blah, blah. And the stuff about, sitting at the beach, the cold, calloused, I don't really care is where I have the problem. Even from somewhat removed from the NLL, it's like, dude, what are we doing? We're all pretty used to like Jerry Jones and, other big time owners who, they want to make more money off of the product. They don't ever want to give up more of their slice of the pie.
Right.
I get that. And I do think that there is an element of like the players don't know what it costs to run a league, and that's fair. But like you said, there's so much more that's being said that just is uncalled for and cold. And it really makes me feel like he doesn't really care about this league and about the sport. And it's just a money-making venture for him. And like you said, he doesn't need this league to make money. So if you guys want to shut it down, fine, cool, great. And that's kind of where I have a problem with what he's said publicly. And it's crazy. And
it's crazy that he did it twice, that he doubled down on it. After the first one, there was enough backlash in the lacrosse community that he should have said, maybe I shouldn't say this. And again, like I said, like Zach Currier and Reed Reinhold, who are president and vice president of the NLLPA, are very smart people. Okay, they're very polite people. They're very smart people. I can tell you very much if you said to them, hey, this is what we're kind of paying for flights, hotels, equipment, whatever, they're going to look at that and go, okay, here's what we're willing to then give up, vice versa. Like, they're smart people. They're not going to like try to rip off the billionaire owners in any way. So to continuously like almost insult them and be like, well, they just don't know. And like see like you're above them. And then to say like, well, we're not having conversations about this every day. It's not like we're on meetings every week. I'm like, you don't put that out. That is bad PR. Mm-hmm. Like literally, like why would you say that? That's truly, it's just insane to me that this is like what's occurring. Imagine if Jerry Jones, as many outlandish things as he says about the NFL and his own team, and he said some things recently that are crazy. Like, imagine if he was just like, yeah, well, the players can hold out. It doesn't really matter. Like, I'll be on my private beach house, just, you know. Like what? Like that's literally insane. And the fact that he said it twice and first he said it was going to be World War III, and then now he took it even a step further and was like, yeah, I don't even really care. Like, it is what it is. It's so stupid. And for an owner of one of the premier teams in the league, like the Toronto Rock, that's what bothers me more than anything. It's not like this is Panther City, who was literally in it only to make money. And then it didn't make money and they're like, we're out. That's one thing. This is you've been around forever. Like, let's think before we speak on these public forums, and let's work with the NLLPA to get a deal done. Like, if nothing else, like he strikes me as a guy that does care about the game of lacrosse. I mean, he owns a senior A team in Toronto as well. Like, he seems to at least care about it to a degree that, in my mind, should stop him from saying these things publicly. Yeah, is essentially where I'm at with it.
The one, I think, good piece of news is that as scary as some of the things that he's said are in terms of like what the future of this league looks like this coming year, and to be fair, free agency is supposed to start in what, 2 days, 3 days, something like that.
I think it's about a week right now. I want to say today's the 28th.
I thought Adam Levy said it was like 4 days ago, like yesterday. Anyway, regardless,
it's soon though. It's very soon.
Right. We're coming down to it, and we have no idea what's happening with Rochester, although there have been some good reports. We have no idea what's happening with the CBA. We have no idea. There's still rumors that there's at least one other, if not several other teams that could potentially maybe pull the plug.
Which I have no idea where that's coming from, by the way. I don't have sources. Let me make that very clear. I have zero sources. But like, Philly draws like 5,000 to 6,000 people a game. They're a sports town. Okay. Albany has done everything they can, and they have been continuing to increase attendance. So, okay, Ottawa was in their first year, and now you're telling me there's a report that they might not last? Like what? They've been drawing several thousand people to all of their games, and they're in a new market. Like, let's pump the brakes on wherever these reports are coming from. It's insane to me.
Well, I was going to say that even kind of given all of that and these comments from the Rock owner, I'm also hearing a lot of other reports that are saying he's just kind of talking. They're actually a lot closer than what's kind of being pushed, and something is going to get done. So,
and I've told you guys in the chat, I do think a CBA gets done. But that to me is almost worse. If you're actually close on a deal, why are you then going and bad-mouthing everybody? Because now you're doing it just to do it. Like, that just to do it. That almost makes you out to be the villain. Like, literally, just because you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but hopefully that gets done. Hopefully we're not missing any time, and if we do, it's very minimal. For everyone's sake, we all want the NLL to be around, but definitely something worth kind of keeping an eye on and talking about, I think, as well. So that is going to do it for us, I guess. Unless did you get it all out? Do you need?
That's a good way to end it. I need to say that because I'm kind of tired of it. Like, it's just so childish. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that is enough from us. We will get out of here on that. As always, I am at Neil Barrett on Instagram, Twitter, of pretty much everything. I am that. Brandon is at Hoot Sports Media on Instagram and Twitter. Also, if you have any kind of sporting event and you need a photographer and it's in the Denver area, or you have the budget to fly him somewhere,
yes, I will travel.
Hit him up because he is great. If you did not, please go check out his photos. Check out Outside the Boxes photos. They were really seriously fantastic. And the one of Hilton Eicher celebrating is like,
that was sick.
So good. So freaking good. And I'll tell you, because we haven't talked about this, I reposted it, and the amount of traction that thing got from PLL people. I was like, oh.
Hey, shout out to Hayden Lewis. I saw he used that photo.
Yep.
The PLL account retweeted my photo of Baptiste and Nardella. Shout out to them. The Red Legion liked and shared everything. So anyone that shared my stuff this week, very much appreciated.
Yes.
It was a very good week for engagement, and sometimes we get lost in engagement, but it does feel good to see the stuff get recognized. So
yeah, and seriously, it's deserved.
Thank you.
Great stuff. But let's get out of here with that. As always, you can catch the show at Runout Pod on Instagram and Twitter as well. Please come interact with us. If you liked anything that you heard on today's show, like, subscribe, comment, share. Well, all those things, they do so much for this show and helping us continue to put it out week in and week out. With that, we will sign off. And as always, we'll catch you in the comments.